Well, the entire world wants you dead, and we need to change your face.
Mm-hmm.
And you're about to cry, but you think about that ice cream party, and you're like, okay. This brings us into the character creator menu, which is a series first for Metal Gear Solid.
Yep.
You can create a really terrible looking guy here. One thing I did is I made mine look exactly like Andrew Schultz, which really makes the game hilarious. Dog, you took my motherfucking personality? Bruh, how the fuck am I gonna motherfucking think I'm you?
I didn't vote for any of this. Big Boss is doing the exact opposite of what I wanted him to do. Taking my face?
Bruh, you took my face? Maybe slime out my own motherfucking...
Yeah, I mean, that'll add some spice to the...
Damn, quiet's bad as fuck. I'm gonna go into a shower with a washcloth.
New mission available.
There is no class, only swag. Friedrich Nietzsche. Press the left trigger to aim. If you want to line up your shot, try entering first-person mode. But be careful, your movement will be much slower. The first words of Herman Melville's Moby Dick. As we draw to a close with the final mainline entry in the Metal Gear Solid canon, and quite likely the last Hideo Kojima-helmed Metal Gear ever, I find myself reaching to the past and recalling another adolescent obsession of mine, MMA. Though the sport has been too boring and high in Nelk content for me to watch regularly since about 2018, there's things about it that I will love no matter what. Chiefly among those things is the insane propensity of fighters, coaches, and even incompetent judges to make the most absurd ego-coddling excuses you will ever hear. If you've listened to the show for a while, you've heard me list my favorites. Cracked Skull, Anavar Tainted Goat, it goes on. The fact that MMA generates such hilarious attempts at ass coverings is owed in part to the massive public humiliation associated with losing a one-on-one fistfight. The rest is owed to the participants, organizers, coaches, and fans of the sport being incredibly stupid. It all makes for a very reliable stream of idiotic rationalizations. But not all excuses are brought into this world to protect their creators' self-esteem. Or self-of-esteem, as Tito Ortiz might say. Some of the funniest ones you'll ever hear come from a place of hope and love. Now, for my money, Metal Gear Solid V or 5, The Phantom Pain, offers perhaps the greatest, most replayable, and engrossing modern stealth gameplay to ever grace modern consoles and PC. Its story may suffer from some problems typical to latter entries in the series, but it also demonstrates some remarkable improvements in dialogue, characterization, and, strangely enough, subtlety. 10 years and a countless amount of playthroughs and new games later, I find myself playing it exclusively for weeks and weeks on end. At the same time, it has more excuses made for it than any other game in the series combined, and none of those excuses come from anyone who had anything to do with the production of this game. And count me among the many. I still grade this thing on a curve. If only they gave it another year. If only they let him go $20 million over budget. Then it would be the greatest fucking thing ever made. But I'm not nearly as bad as the ending was supposed to give you a phantom pain, which is why it's paced exactly like Peace Walker crowd. In the first few years after its release, and Konami's pretty disgraceful treatment of Kojima and his team, you'd see excuses that would necessitate tears in the fabric of space-time to make any sense. Multiple people postulated that the whole blowout with Konami was a ruse, and that he was still working there, and that it was actually a meta DLC that played off the themes of Zero and Big Boss's schism, and the series' meditations on informational deluge. Kojima himself has been coy, or perhaps cautious of being sued. He said things to the effect of, the game you got was exactly what I wanted to put out. It was finished. While also reposting messages, articles, and videos made by others that very plainly state the game was rushed out of the door unfinished by a rapacious pachinko machine manufacturer. In any event, he isn't dedicating even a fraction of the effort that we've been putting in over the last decade. But regardless if you're a straightforward Konami fucked him and us guy like me, or a delirious Bart Simpson at Camp Krusty type that believes his wife, children, and family dog are all in on a massive meta ARG directed by Kojima and his covert allies at Konami, we all waste our time doing this for one reason. That is, if things really did go down in exactly the way they appear to have, it's pretty fucking sad and rotten that the fun days are long gone. Auteurs can't go double over budget anymore. Companies would rather release tower defense stepchildware than chase prestige. And maybe most of all, that Kojima himself was pretty fucking miserable cranking these last few ones out. I can see why those guys on Never Be Game Over are so into finding hidden fan blades and everything. It's a depressing world out there. But fortunately, this is a really depressing game where almost every single character behaves repulsively. It contains some of the most harrowing scenes the series has ever seen. One of the more pro-social characters adamantly demands to torture a child at one point, and he arguably has the right idea. So tie an endangered animal to a balloon, ruin an ash spreading ceremony with your highly offensive whiteface makeup, and deploy with us ASAP into this last day of our war without end.
You've been in a coma for quite some time. Yes, I know. You would like to know how long. I'm afraid it's been 9 years. Damn it! Nosocoma! 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 Nurse! Calm down. Calm down. Try not to panic. Wait a second. Try not to panic.
Well, this is it. This is...
Yep.
God, it's now been 10 years since this game came out, and it wasn't a surprise because those videos I alluded to, those theory videos, among them were a very popular genre of video that suggested that perhaps 9 years after the initial release of the game, we would get a part 3, a chapter 3 to the fucking game, that we'd finally get a real ending in their terms. But it always feels like this just came out.
Yeah.
And I remember this came out so long ago. I remember I was on the verge of like selling my Xbox One before I moved to New York because it was like, I don't even have a fucking TV, but I kept it under the reasoning that my motivation to get $60 to play this game would like light a fire under my ass.
Well, as listeners may remember, I came to this series later than Felix, so I missed the immense hype that preceded this game. But when I got to it in my playthrough of the series, oh boy, some of my fondest memories of playing this series or any other definitely lie in the time spent playing MGS5. I will always remember how fun it was, how satisfying it was to, feel the boots hit the ground off of Pequot, slap on True by Spandau Ballet on the Walkman, and just make a break for the mission target. There's a mood or a feeling to this game that is special. And even though I have, these years later, more of a critical attitude toward a lot of aspects, I'll always fondly remember, especially that first playthrough, up there with the best times I've ever had playing a video game. So even in my own personal capacity, when I got to this entry of this series, I was pretty bowled over. I cannot imagine how it felt to actually be there when it first came out. The teasers, the rumors, and then the spectacle of the game itself.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit at the end of our previous episode about Ground Zeroes. But the anticipation and lead up to this game, it was an indescribable feeling. those Tokyo Game Show and E3, rest in peace, extended plays that we saw, where I believe it was the 2014 one that focused on the first real mission of the game, Phantom Limbs, the one where you rescue Kazuhira. Yeah, and it was. I mean, I think me and a small cohort of MGS fans that all knew each other on Twitter at the time were the only ones who were anticipating, like, you know, that we would meet Barry Seal at some point. but it was still, everyone had the same generalized anticipation that it seemed like they had perfected even more so the weight and the gravity and fluidity of the movement in Ground Zeroes. But now we had pretty much unlimited options for how we would take things on, and that the world itself was dynamic and reactive in a way that you know, Snake Eater would have been if it was made with modern technology. And I would say, you know, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, this is a game that this is one of those ones that I would say we probably disagree on the most. But the closest I was towards just calling this an unqualified disappointment was when I first finished it in 2015.
So you've grown more and more fond of it ever since your initial playthrough, whereas, and we'll get to it, I've kind of cooled on it after, like I described earlier, being completely electrified the first time I played it. So we've drifted in different directions.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I would say it's the difference between, you know, going into a game and thinking, still having that like residual adolescence thing of like, oh, we're finally going to get all the answers. Mm-hmm. And then being so disappointed that you don't really learn anything. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the obvious fact that it is, regardless if you think this game is finished or not, that it is a pretty disappointingly paced back half of the game and ending. Mm-hmm. But then after 10 years of playing this intermittently and not only growing to appreciate how open-ended the gameplay and everything is, but also appreciating that some of my criticisms initially, be they about the open world or some of the level designs, that stuff really wouldn't have made a difference and wouldn't have gone that far towards making this game any more replayable than it already is. And I consider it one of the some of the greatest value for my money I've ever gotten from like a modern game. And I don't know, you know, at first I felt this immense disappointment at, you know, how first drafty a lot of the story stuff is. Mm-hmm. And it still is heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. Like many things with this game, because it was so close. It was so close to being like, you know, as much as in so much as this thing can exist, like a consensus, like greatest game of all time or one of them. Mm-hmm. But despite, what's kind of amazing to me is despite how fucked up development is and how clearly, you know, they either went over budget or for whatever reason it was rushed out the door, that the highs are still so high.
Yeah, it's been interesting on my end because I play these in story order. So, you know, started with Snake Eater. Obviously, I could tell this was, it took me a little bit to get into it, but I could tell that this was a series I was going to love. Peace Walker, solid. And then I get to Ground Zeroes in this. And I felt like, how can it get any better than this? But as the years have gone on, I think I've just realized about myself that I prefer the classic style in this series. You know, the set pieces, the puzzles, the backtracking, more than I prefer the base building in the open world and the mission menu side of things, this side of Phantom Pain. But there are, of course, still things that Phantom Pain does, and Ground Zeroes for that matter do, that those classic games don't do. That is excellent, and that is still very thrilling and fun.
Yeah, okay, so I will, to elaborate on it a little bit before we go deeper into it, I would say that, I don't know. I think it's everything is sort of graded on a curve in this series to an extent.
Yeah.
And you could honestly say that with any piece of media ever, but especially this one, because your evaluation of how good this was or what the ceiling for its quality is sort of predicated on the idea of, how much of a fair shot did they get to make this? Mm-hmm. And opinions vary, right? I don't think we'll ever really know, but there are compelling arguments in all angles, kind of. Which is to say, not to defend Konami, but there is an argument to be made of like, okay, they already spent like 80 million fucking
right. Like sometimes a budget is just a budget, and you can't purely complain that infinite money was not thrown at this. I
right. But I would say just to walk you through my personal feelings on it over the years. So the first time I played it, it was just I guess I just understood it as like a straightforward Metal Gear Solid game, in so much as that exists as a concept. But a Metal Gear Solid game with a new coat of paint on it, and yeah, there's this twist that I didn't really hate at the time, but I thought it was a weirdly predictable twist that didn't really knock me on my ass, even though I thought the concept was cool and I liked a lot of the execution. Mm-hmm. And basically that when you boiled it all down, and you took away the admittedly like great gameplay, that this was just Diamond Dog's hype moments and aura. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's all that was there. Mm-hmm. And it's when the hype moments and aura are good, they're fucking great. Yep. But there was a certain emptiness to it. Mm-hmm. And that emptiness was best encapsulated by how inert and repetitive the open world felt, especially Afghanistan. Yeah. That it felt like it was just one big level from like two. It actually less reactive and dynamic than those. That it felt less real. However, as time has gone on, and I've put some distance behind it, gave myself a break from the series for a little while, came back, I understood it as something entirely different when I replayed it about 7 or 8 years later. And instead of like, this is the missing link, that is how it was described in marketing. Though I think they've used that for like 3 or 4 games now.
Certainly first with Snake Eater, then Peace Walker, and then this, yeah.
They used it for fucking portable ops.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the original Sin, yeah.
I consider it more like Eyes Wide Shut, which is to say that it is this very fucking weird story where 90% of what happens, or what maybe has happened, there is a decent argument that it didn't really happen exactly as we saw it, or maybe it didn't even happen at all. There have been games that have tried the unreliable narrator trope with the protagonist character being a narrator, and there's kind of a hard cap on how successfully you can pull it off due to some of the necessities of a game being playable. But I think they succeeded in that more than anyone ever has. There is this constant feeling of everything just feeling off, kind of like in a dream, but more like it's a waking delusion.
Well, one thing I do love about the game, you used the word aura, and I guess I said something similar when I talked about how it feels and the atmosphere. I do love how this game feels, not necessarily as a Link plot-wise, because some of the stuff I like least is to do with the plot itself, but just that ominous sense that we're leaving the groovy 60s in Snake Eater, and even still that kind of idealistic feeling of Peace Walker, Ground Zeroes, we talked all about this. We're entering a very morally ambiguous time that will give way to the true Dark Ages and lead us to the nasty new era of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2, or for most people, the icy, lonely world of MGS1. And I really love how this game does that. Not through the kind of sepia tones that MGS4 was trying too hard with.
Yeah, and to that extent, I feel like it did answer things. Not, how exactly did Big Boss become bad? Because we already fucking know. Or what really happened. And there are a ton of questions that will never get satisfying answers because unfortunately, they kind of wrote themselves into a corner with Metal Gear Solid 4. That is sort of the pitfall of prequels.
Yep.
That no matter how interesting your characters are and what incredible scenarios and set pieces you make for them, if the last thing in your timeline, the closest thing you have to an ending, contains Drebin, you're kind of like, you're not really able to give a satisfactory answer. But it didn't give me a satisfactory answer with things like, how did Big Boss go back to the U.S. Army?
Yeah.
But it did give me one for okay, what did this grand enshitting of the world of Metal Gear Solid look like?
Yes.
Why did it happen? Who were the people involved? But also, something that I only picked up in my last few playthroughs of this game in the past 2 years was that there is something so depressing and hollow and broken about Venom as a character and a narrator. Mm-hmm. But also, he is responsible for there being some heroism and selflessness out there that proliferated through the system and ended up in Solid Snake. Mm-hmm. People argue that he's not a character, and I really don't think that's true at all. He's very muted, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I think it would be... he wouldn't make sense of it as a character if he was a happy-go-lucky guy. He's severely brain damaged and probably the most gaslit man in history.
Yes.
But he does have a character that is entirely distinct from Big Boss. And I think it's a cool, not a total inversion of the broken, unreliable narrator character, but it's kind of a cool swan song for him. That there was enough good in him that shone through despite it all, and somewhere, some way, like the wind blowing a leaf along, it wound up in the hands of Solid Snake.
Don't you die on me, damn it!
He's dropping.
Intubate now. Cardiac arrest. He's in VFib. Hit him again.
Not your kind of people.
Clear.
You seem kind of phony. Everything's a lie.
How's he doing?
Well,
he's stabilized, but it took too long. He's in a coma.
Something in your makeup.
What about him?
Don't see eye to eye.
We could talk a bit about just I'm especially interested in how you felt when, after Ground Zeroes, after the taste that we got with Ground Zeroes, what it was like to have all of a sudden this entirely new style of play in Metal Gear, both good and ill. The open world, and then all the new toys, and what was it like?
There are so many more options you have at your disposal in Phantom Pain, and I don't just mean you can throw a fucking silly decoy at people. Though you can do that. There's no shortage of absolutely like ridiculous and funny gadgets and weapons that provide some much needed series character that I feel was missing from 4 in an otherwise completely grim and dark world. The fact that you're in an that all these individual stages are contained within an open world, and that can dictate, that can provide, an exponentially greater amount of angles through which you can attack an objective, or it's because there's like 50 times as many weapons or whatever. But it's just, I've been playing both these games for an incredibly long period of time. I have played the paint off of Ground Zeroes and gotten to a point where like, okay, I can't touch this for like 18 months because I played too much. I've never gotten there with Phantom Pain because there's always just like that much variation that I can add to things.
I mean, I made reference to gadgets and new toys. I mean, I love a lot of those things. I like the decoy. I like the cardboard box, the deepening of the cardboard box tricks where you can slap different stickers on them that elicit different reactions from the guards. If you put a guard poster on your box, they salute you and move on. If you put a hot lady, they ogle you and you can pop out and hold them up. You can make your bionic hand pop out of your arm and guide it like a rocket. There's tons of fun stuff to do, and I give a lot of credit to that. They've built on some of the Peace Walker stuff. Don't think it's terribly fun to call in airstrikes all that often or whatever in a MGS game, but you can do that. You can play it all different kinds of ways, like you said. I think there's definitely a lot to credit in that way. Personally, I do feel as though the game is more fun and more successful the fewer items and weapons you have access to, though, which means that it loses me as it goes. Because I'm not saying you have to play it this way, but there's really nothing stopping you. Once you have a sniper rifle with a trank, you've got a hammer, and you can really treat every problem like a nail. And I sort of wish that weren't the case. I wish that the game didn't leave that open as essentially a rinse and repeat strategy that gets you from A to B. Because after that, you show up to the site, you tag everybody, you trank them with your silent sniper rifle, go in and extract whoever you have to extract or whatever. And that's it. I don't know if you feel that that's the case, but especially with the side missions, that's when I really started to realize how much it was the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a good argument to be made that tranquilizer guns in general, or at least how they have been implemented since 3 or even 2, have caused more harm than benefit to the game. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I fully agree with that, but there's certainly merit to that argument.
And don't get me wrong. It's still kind of satisfying. It's very satisfying to hear that, whether it's a pistol or a sniper. But I felt as though I was never, at a certain point, I didn't have to really get creative anymore as a first time player. It didn't push me once I had enough.
Well, I will say to that end, that's kind of how I discovered the replayability, because I obviously, woo pistol and upgrading my Fulton to the wormhole Fulton in my first playthrough.
Yeah.
And they bring back degradable silencers. I mean, they did have degradable silencers in Ground Zeroes, but you had a tranquilizer pistol that had an undegradable silencer. But the highest upgrade of your trank pistol, you have infinite suppressor again. And it is like, tranquilizer rounds are the best thing you can use in this game if you are playing it in the way that you are supposed to play it, right? At least according to the scoring criteria. Mm-hmm. The new appreciation I found for the core gameplay loops and really every mission was when I went through every mission again, but without any tranquilizer or anything, not even sleep gas.
I just wish that there was a little bit more, like, that's up to you and me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that sort of maybe gets us into the two other notes I had, which is, I mean, we can talk about the open world issue, whether it's an issue or not, what the common criticism, in which criticism I share now. I didn't feel this at all at the time, but especially Afghanistan. I mean, it is, whether it was unfinished or whether they didn't have as good a grasp on how this open world might really age in replayability. I do feel it's not as enjoyable for me, knowing that there's really not a lot going on out there.
That is one of the at least partially one of the criticisms that I have has probably remained the most unchanged for me over the past decade. The thing is, though, on the other side of that, what could be done differently? And I don't mean that in the sense that like, oh, there's nothing that could have made this better. But I am curious what could have made the open world, at least Afghanistan, which I think is the worst of the two maps, better. Because I don't know. I always think about those Assassin's Creed games where it's our game map is 20 times the size of Central Park.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Yeah. And they technically have like dynamic enemies and a revenge system that does technically go much deeper than the one this game has.
Yeah.
And activities and NPCs to talk to. But it still ends up feeling like shitty and inert in the same way.
Yeah.
And I almost think that like it's kind of a doomed enterprise open world. Because what everyone is really saying when they say the empty worlds feel dead and inert is like, why doesn't this excite me in the same way that GTA 3 did when I was 9? Yeah. And it's like, it reminds me of the guys who were like, Christmas used to be so fun when I was a child. And it's like, no shit, this thing seemed more alive when you were 9.
I totally get it. I mean, honestly, what I'm really confessing is that I don't really go for open world stuff myself.
Yeah, they said that unambiguously, they have done way more harm than good to games.
Yeah.
Unambiguous.
But it's a part of this game,
Yeah.
And it's not, look, it's not terrible. And as to your question, what could they have done? Maybe nothing. I mean, what? You're supposed to have some Afghan farmer be like, can you help me snake? Like, okay, I don't really want that either. I'm just trying to be honest about like what it felt like to go back. And this brings me to my last note on gameplay really is like, as much as this game plays like butter and with the culmination and streamlining of everything that was built up over the last 5 titles and the fun you can have and the creativity you absolutely can get into with all the different methods of approaching a problem. Ultimately, like I said at the top, I've drifted toward preferring the original 3. And what I miss in this game now compared to the other titles is I miss the set pieces of making your way through a complex of infiltration in like a more involved way, not just like getting into the complex to Fulton the guy. Like off the top of my head, in MGS2, when you get to the part where you have to snipe all the different Semtex before you can cross the bridge. The part in MGS1 where you have to figure out, I mean, the PAL key card is a bad example because no one likes that part, but like I could even say the same about boss fights. There really aren't boss fights in this game. I mean, there's Quiet and Sahelanthropus. The Man on Fire fight, I don't know. I don't really count that. But with Quiet, it's just a really big open arena where you snipe her the way you would snipe, another enemy a couple of times, get her health bar down. I'm not saying it's not enjoyable. It's just not the kind of fun, dramatic arena type boss fight that up until now was even in certain moments of 4 kind of a staple of the series. And I missed that as well.
Well, would I say that 1, 2, and 3 are unambiguously better games than this in every rubric through which we evaluate games? Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like I'm sure it's incredibly fucking difficult to work on an open world, especially one like this where there is actually a measure of both fairness and challenge in every way that you approach something. I'm sure that's incredibly fucking difficult, and in some
Absolutely.
ways more difficult and time consuming than designing like a more traditional linear game. However, I think the feeling of progression, and I was thinking about this a lot, how these games totally abandoned the idea of OSP, of on-site procurement, except for like 2 missions in this game that are just replays of main missions that aren't OSP. And how that was something that I loved about the first 3 games was how carefully every weapon or item was placed, and how much they corresponded with a certain level of ability or power that the player had. And I think I definitely prefer this system of like where it's kind of halfway, where there are some things you need to find blueprints for, and you need to get your base to a certain level.
True.
That it's certainly better than having Drebin in his stupid shop.
No argument here.
Yeah, but it's still like it doesn't. Even though now it can take like 3 days of real life time to make like the best anti-material sniper rifle in the game, I don't feel as excited as when, I got the most noggin by sticking up the end 3 times. It's never going to feel quite as good as a linear game does. I will also say, to what you said about preferring the original games overall, where there's much more limitations on player ability and movement. As much as I adored this game and how it plays and how it controls, I think there is something sad about how I will play this game and then I'll play like, fucking the RE4 remake or something, right? Or I'll play I won't play this game, but just using it as an example, Last of Us 2 or something.
Neither of us will play that game.
Neither of us will play that piece of shit. But there are obviously huge differences among these 3 games, but they all kind of control the same. Every game of a certain level of quality controls the same. The guns essentially function the same way. It's the same type of physics, the same type of interactions with the environment. Obviously, there are variations therein, and these games are entirely different in a lot of other ways. But there is sort of like a grand unified style of third-person gameplay.
Yep.
Maybe it's impossible for things to not be that way because, technology is so good. Modern players would really not enjoy playing something like the original Tomb Raiders or the original Resident Evils, where your character deliberately moves very awkwardly. But I really miss that as something that was part of a series or a game's personality. How they controlled, what limitations you had.
You're singing my tune. You're absolutely singing my tune.
And I think about like how much further we have gotten with the way that physics and collision are integrated into games, how differently player characters interact with the world compared to even just like 10 years ago. It seems to me like there are more tools than ever to create variation among control styles. But I can't think of a contemporary AAA game, and maybe I'm not playing a diverse enough assortment of games, but I can't think of a contemporary AAA game that a ton of people played where there were a very distinct set of limitations around not just the player character's speed and movement and ability to traverse obstacles, but also just fundamental things like camera control. Where, like, I think about, how great that weightiness of Ground Zeroes is and how you could fuck up by, like, leaning into the momentum too hard. How fun it would be to have stuff like that in, like, a horror game or a stealth. No one makes stealth games anymore, but it's depressing. There are fewer types of games ever now, And in those fewer remaining types of games, there is less variation than ever.
Dee Dee, come back! Mitch, here's the dog you brought back. Bit of a troublemaker. Not sure about the breed, though. He'll get bigger? Uh-huh. Like this. You know, I can look after him. He's still a pup, so he doesn't listen. I have a feeling someday he'll be useful. I suspect you discovered a real diamond in the rough. With a little polish, I say we got a true diamond dog on our hands.
Buddy system. What do you think about D-Dog, Quiet, what's it called? D-Walker?
D-Walker.
Yeah.
So I was nervous about this during the lead up to the game. And some of my fears did turn out to be true. And by that I mean, I won't say this is not unconditionally true, and there are actually things you can do to the UI without mods that are just part of the game that can nullify some of these advantages. But there are several missions where D-Dog just completely trivializes it.
Oh yeah, I agree. I first thought it was cool when I was playing it years ago, but you can't take D-Dog with you. It's ridiculous.
You can't. I mean, that said, you can turn off like through the wall visibility.
Yeah.
You can turn off like red triangles over people's heads.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, do you think Hamas got that?
I was saving that. I was saving that.
Sorry.
No. I mean,
Sorry.
it's as good a time as any.
I mean, that is to say, there are things in game you can do that.
No, I like that.
Keep it from trivializing it, and you don't have to bring D-Dog. I think I really like Quiet as a buddy because I don't know if people know this, but it used to be if you played through the entire game, you didn't have her anymore. But Konami, I think in like 2017, they did this thing where if you replayed if you replayed Cloaked in Silence 6 times in a row, you could get her back. And I did do that.
I did that.
actually,
once you told me that,
that,
I went off and did it. This was like not even for this series. This was like a year or two ago. You told me that, and I said, "Oh, neat." So I got her back, which is kind of funny because narratively, it makes no fucking sense. But I like that.
It makes zero sense.
I like that they gave you the option.
I mean, I love her character, and I think she's a really well-balanced buddy because, like, sometimes she's just nowhere near you. She's, like, off humming, like, 5 miles away. She can't even, like, get the guys that are in front of you in her scopes. You can get her to come over to you, but you don't have total control over her all the time. If you give her, like, the Brennan, her crazy, like, anti-material rifle, if you're going for a no-kills run and you get spotted even for a second, she'll just like kill that guy.
Yeah.
Even if you were going to like be able to trank him before he set off an alert. But I think she's a great buddy. I think when you get her bond up to the highest level and you're able to like synchronize shots, that's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
D-Horse, the only reason that he gets to be a buddy is because he's a car that you can call for, and that there is a stealth option in which you don't have with a normal
over
car.
The one side, you mean?
Yeah. But and that you can fire a weapon while you're on there.
Yeah.
And those having a stealth option and being able to use weapons, that's not nothing.
It is cool the first time you ever like maybe even in the first mission of the game where you walk by a guard but you hang over the opposite side and they don't see you at all and they just think it's a horse walking by. Like that is fun. It's a cute thing.
There are a few missions too where he is by far the best buddy to have. Like there are a few of those like run around the map and blow up X amount of vehicles.
Right.
There's no better buddy to have, I think, than D-Horse on those. And the defecate command, where you tell him to shit in the road.
It is useful.
It's incredibly useful. And it is a way to incapacitate people in vehicles without losing no traces. for D Walker really makes me understand why fuck, what was it? Battle Gear isn't in the game to be. I mean, it's in the game, but you can never play with it because Walker Gear, which is like 1/50th of the size of Battle Gear, if you even get like anti-tank missiles, you can just kill like any outpost full of people.
Yeah.
You can massacre OKB-0.
Yeah.
And it's super fun.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone should try to do at least one mission where you are just fucking massacring people with D Walker. Or even just using his weird like incapacitation railgun thing. Or CQCing people with him, which is also funny. But there is a little bit of a bullshit aspect to like, okay, you have a horse, another soldier, a trained dog, and then a robot that can annihilate any vehicle. Fucking game. I don't know. I'm glad that we have the option, but it is.
I don't think I ever used D Walker.
I would say try the mission back up, back down. If you have access to D Walker's anti-tank missiles.
Is that the one where the convoy comes through, right? Or
no, that is, well, you could also try it with that one too. That, I think you're thinking of occupation forces. Back up, back down is the one where it's just all the you have all these marked like armored personnel carriers or tanks.
You have to go get them, right? You have to blow them all up. You
can pass the mission as long as you only take out one or Fulton one. But if you like complete every single objective and like make it last like 25 minutes, you have to take all 7 targets out within a certain amount of time and extract at least like, well, there's 6 prisoners in the mission, but there's a specific prisoner you have to extract in order to get the second wave of tanks and a gunship.
Got it.
But it's super fun if you have a lethal D Walker setup. Yeah, I don't know. I ended up liking the buddy system a lot more than I thought I would, though. Yeah, I mean, I would say I think if you are new to these games and you kind of feel overwhelmed by how much choice and open-endedness there's in this game, I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing D-Dog along
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. And you, like, if you like this game, you're going to replay these missions a billion times. You can do them without D-Dog. You can change the options so D-Dog's marking ability is not exactly like being psychic, you know? So I think it's way more of a benefit than a detriment to the game.
FOB missions? Like
well, I fucking love them. I have never been super big into Metal Gear Online. I know a lot of people actually really like it a lot.
It has a big or it has a very passionate following. I know that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I should give it more of a try. I've played it just because, you know, I've wanted to figure out what the fuss is. I don't know. One of these days I'll give it another shot, but FOB stuff is so much more compelling to me.
Yeah. And just thematically just fits better to me, you know, as with Metal Gear, you know.
I love the nuke aspect. I actually really like the way they implemented that. FOBs are it really made me wish that either, you know, Konami was the type of company that would take more risks, and you know, I don't necessarily want a sequel to this game, but I would love it if there was a new Metal Gear game that was, you know, like a version of this game where they fixed some of the flaws and it had more time to cook, and there was an even more intricate FOB system that had way more variation in the types of places you infiltrate. Because it is, God, this has been such a grim era for multiplayer and online aspects in games. Every fucking game on Earth for about 5 years implemented a shitty battle royale system that sucked. Even Counter-Strike did it. And FOBs were one of the only things I've played in the past, like, 10, 12 years of games where it felt completely novel in every way.
Do you want to move on to the story?
Yeah, let's get going.
Here. Nothing like a little digoxin to get you back in the game. Come on!
So the game starts off with the actual Nietzsche quote, not the one I said. There are no facts, only interpretation. The thing about swag, he said that later in his career.
Yeah.
The first thing you see is these whirling fan blades in a hospital that became very recognizable to people who analyzed and overanalyzed the trailer. You come to, in this Cypriot hospital, there is a bald doctor who tries to very gently instruct you how to move the camera. This is the first thing they do for coma patients in real life also. Is they figure out if they like inverted or normal camera sensitivity.
Yeah.
But once you figure that out, once he realizes you are a competent enough adult to use your mouse or right analog stick, he goes, okay, so don't freak out, but you were in a coma for 9 years. And you freak the fuck out. You really, you go, "Blah!" You start squirming around. And he goes, we got another crybaby. Nurse, get me some fentanyl. And just fucking jams it in your arm. And you're like, okay, time to, what's one more week? I've already slept 9 years. Okay, he's going to do this a second time. All right, I probably shouldn't even tell you because you're such a crybaby. You know your friends who you were riding in that helicopter with? They're now a part of you forever. Because you got a bunch of bones and shit all in your body. You have this fucked up horn coming out of your head. And don't look at your left arm right now because it's probably not there. And you go, gulp, it's behind me, isn't it? And you look at your arm and it's a hook. And you're like, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, oh my God, can we get a guy who isn't a fucking baby for once? And they put you down again. Okay, third time's the charm. Doctor goes, I had a big ice cream party prepared for you today, but it's only for big boys who don't freak out when we tell them stuff. And you go, I promise, I'll be good. I won't cry. Well, the entire world wants you dead, and we need to change your face.
Mm-hmm.
And you're about to cry, but you think about that ice cream party, and you're like, okay. This brings us into the character creator menu, which is a series first for Metal Gear Solid.
Yep.
You can create a really terrible looking guy here. One thing I did is I made mine look exactly like Andrew Schultz, which really makes the game hilarious. Dog, you took my motherfucking personality? Bruh, how the fuck am I gonna motherfucking think I'm you?
I didn't vote for any of this. Big Boss is doing the exact opposite of what I wanted him to do. Taking my face?
Bro, you took my face? Maybe slime out my own motherfucking...
Yeah, I mean, that'll add some spice to the...
Damn, quiet's bad as fuck. I'm gonna go into a shower with a washcloth.
Yeah, and now, sorry. Well, Felix, here's a question. I mean, as we talk about this story, are we going to spoil it early, or are we going to save it? Like, because I assume people, like, I don't really know. We've tread the line carefully, but I don't really know whether people are playing these after they've heard our episodes or during or before, because I don't mind keeping it till the end, but then it'll be obviously like a little bit to catch up at the end about what we think about the whole deal and the character.
Yeah,
you know?
I think we can hint at it and allude to it, but I think it makes more sense to reveal at the end. I'm not worried about spoiling things because I assume if people listen to this, they've already played it, but no, we can definitely...
No, there are some sickos in the comments I've seen who are indeed people who just like listening to us talk about it. So
Well, if they're
before they
listening,
play.
I mean, they've had all the other games spoiled.
I suppose so.
Okay, so you don't freak out this time. You're a good boy. They did not do anything about that giant fucking horn that's coming out of your head and all the teeth that are in your fucked up body. Though they have assured you that if you're worried that you missed out on 9 years of gains, they have been massaging your muscles for 9 years to make sure that you're not that weak. So that's good. That's good. Anyway, things are looking up. You got through your first doctor visit in 3 weeks without having a tantrum. You're getting totally free plastic surgery from a guy who's basically Turkish, so he could probably move your hairline up a bit.
Absolutely.
Well, bad news comes in threes. The nurse who's been giving you that amazing morphine and fentanyl, you see her in the corner of her eye. She's getting garroted by a 5'11" Dutch Japanese model. What the fuck? You try to go, and the doctor is like, after we gave you your ice cream, and you're like, no, fucking, and then too late. The statuesque Dutch Japanese model fucking kills him too, even though he has a cute little doctor's pistol. It's no use.
Yeah.
This woman starts choking you unconscious, and you're going in and out of consciousness. But right as you think you're about to die, this guy who, it's always kind of weird that you're wearing pants, but he's wearing one of those humiliation ritual hospital gowns. Yeah, but whatever. He jumps on her back, and she kind of effortlessly overpowers him.
Well, wait a minute, Felix. We do know the lineage of nudeness that comes from.
Oh my God, you're right.
So there might be a reason that he requested no pants.
Yeah,
and it's a Donald Duck Mickey situation. You have pants but no shirt, and he has a kind of a covering on top, but absolutely nothing on underneath.
This is that very symbolic.
Yep.
Out of many, we created an entire outfit. But he gets effortlessly flung aside, but he did distract her long enough for you to no longer be getting choked unconscious and to death. She whips a fucking throwing knife right into his shoulder. Taking her time, this will be your downfall, because this man who's wearing a hospital gown and his face is covered in bandages, he whips like a bottle of fucking like ether at her.
Yeah.
And then you just hear flames go up and she's completely on fire. Still on fire, she's desperately crawling towards you to still try to kill you. But he gets another bottle, makes her even more on fire somehow, and just fucking boots her out the window.
Yep.
You are horribly confused and terrified, and you go, who is she? What the fuck happened to her? And the Donald Duck bandage guy goes, gave her a light, took the short way down.
Yep.
Which, pretty fucking good line.
It's a great line. I love it. I love the delivery.
Okay, have time to go.
What happened to the woman?
The woman? We gave her a light. She took the short way down.
Who are you?
Who am I? You're talking to yourself. Been watching over you for 9 years. You can call me Ishmael.
What the hell is going on?
Well, the good news is you're in the land of the living. Bad news? Oh, we'll watch you be. On your feet, soldier. The whole place is coming down.
Our first actual part of gameplay. Now, this entire hospital scene, we're obviously going to come back to it. It is a very important part of this game's story. I actually really like this hospital scene, but it's part of my personal interpretation of the game as being like anywhere from 0% to all of this could have happened, but it probably didn't happen as we're seeing it because of just how off everything is, how everything that is wrong with our narrator mentally. And the way that they portray the offness in these scenes is so I really love it. Just the little things like how when Ishmael gets that throwing knife jammed into his shoulder, how there's no blood coming out of it. Just these little things that maybe even escape you the first time you play it. But it is a series first. Most of this is a very long, very cinematic tutorial, which is a very popular thing in big budget games nowadays. There's a lot of enforced helplessness and crawling and a sort of direct tutorializing with pop-ups that you haven't really seen in the series before. I really hate stuff like that. I think it's sort of a mark of a pretentious and shitty game is to have like the first part of the game be an extended sequence where the player character is like helplessly crawling and then eventually it acquaints you with like camera movements and stuff. But the way they do it here is so gratuitous and repulsive and alarming, and everything is just so off that I really love it, actually. And that's not even to say, if this is your first time playing it, you're not even thinking about that.
Yeah.
This is already so action-packed. Everything looks so incredible.
Yep.
By the way, I think this game still looks incredible, even though
it looks great.
It looks fucking awesome. There's also there's an actual horror and tension in this that I just don't feel in God of War has a ton of God of War remake has a ton of shit like this, and I never for a second felt any tension in those. With this, especially the first time you're playing it, and you've just seen these two people get fucking murdered. You've seen this woman brutally lit on fire and kicked out of a window. People are getting shot. There are helicopters perforating the windows. Mm-hmm. It's actually very similar to what I felt my first time in the microwave hall in 4.
Mm-hmm.
Of just oh Jesus Christ, please just make it.
Yeah. One of the more effective parts of 4's scriptedness.
Yeah, absolutely. The first 10 minutes of gameplay is heavily scripted. It takes you're crawling for I would say 10 minutes, and it's horribly tense. At one point, you and Ishmael, you make your way to an elevator, and Ishmael he seems like he's got a good head on his shoulder. He seems like he knows what he's doing, but whatever plan he has, or hastily put together plan, that involved jamming a needle of digoxin into your back so your heart rate would pick up enough for you to be upright, it's not really coming together. You've made it over to an elevator, evading tons of armed jackboots. The troopers that have been storming the hospital, really fucking scary.
Yeah, they're very menacing.
Yeah, a really intimidating death squad. They really did a good job designing these guys. But you are just barely evading these guys. You make your way to an elevator, and a very weird floating child in kind of it actually looks like someone. Do people know who Ian Connor is? It looks like an Ian Connor outfit.
Yeah, well, I mean, this surely is not a spoiler in that it's just so the iconography. It's Lil Mantis.
It's Little Mantis. He's kind of adorable, honestly.
He is. The gas mask is obviously protruding from his face. He's got the accompanying suit, but it's too big for him, so the sleeves sort of, which is very eerie and effective. The sleeves kind of flap around and droop as he floats around. But because he's a kid, he's not bald. He's got a head of red hair.
But he may have appeared out of nowhere. But his friend, who I would say he's Baby Mantis, is more the chaperone to this guy than vice versa.
Yes, he's definitely, as we'll discover, he takes precedence over the second guy. But the second guy is pretty darn scary.
I think they're both fucking awesome. And I think I actually really like the character trait of Mantis. being so young, he's just sort of like a cipher that people with strong desires for revenge and rage can imprint onto.
Yep.
And I like how they use the Man on Fire to subtly hint what is going on with our player character. Anyhow, Baby Mantis and the Man on Fire actually save you from a trio of these horrifying guys, but it swings and roundabouts because they blew up the entire hallway you were in, and they have worsened your already suboptimal fitness situation by horribly dislocating your shoulder. Now, this is one of the parts I fucking love. When you get control again, and you're crawling, and there's like a row of chairs and a railing that you can momentarily prop yourself up on, but your heart rate just still isn't picking up enough. And so you collapse back down, and you're just slamming the already dislocated shoulder into the ground with each pitiful crawl.
Yeah.
The sickening thud of that bony shoulder against the floor.
Yeah.
Some of the best sound design they've ever done.
There's great sound design in this game, as there always is in the series, but there's great sound design in this game. Again, one of the aspects that I'm saying, like moment to moment, the presentation of this game is amazing. Also, you can hear very subtly, you can hear the low health sound from previous games at this moment.
I might as well bring it up now. I've talked about the offness of all of this. I alluded to the no blood coming out of Ishmael's shoulders. And all the weirdness of Ishmael, who, by the way, sounds exactly like you. You both sound like Coleman Francis. This is not a criticism of Kiefer Snake. I think Coleman Francis is a great actor.
Sure.
But it's a similar voice.
Yes.
It's a really similar voice.
And we are Big Boss. That is who we've woken up as. So,
right,
what's going on there?
Yeah. I guess this guy's just such a fan of Big Boss that he's like, can I stay in Cyprus for 9 years and watch over him? And they were like, sure, you fucking weirdo.
Yeah. I don't want to wear pants when I finally meet him, by the way. I want those off.
they're like, okay, what? Sure, knock yourself out, fucking freak.
Long story short, we get through this hospital with Ishmael, and we make it into the lobby. The Man on Fire and Lil Mantis do battle with troops and tanks, and eventually a chopper bursts through the building and chop a bunch of guys up. And we escape thanks to the help from Ishmael, who we lost for a second, but reappears and gets us in I believe an ambulance, and we rush out of there only to crash our car, pass out, to find Ishmael gone. And then we are recovered by our good old pal, Revolver Ocelot. Or should I say, Revolver Ocelot.
The name's Ocelot. Big Boss. You know who I am. A certain man gave me a job to do. 2, actually. First was to get you out of that hospital. The second was to rescue the man himself.
He's here. He's the guy we've all been waiting for. And he seems to have spent the past 9 years that you were in a coma learning how to have a sort of southern western accent despite growing up in Russia and spending his entire life there.
Yes. He just sounds like this now. And we've made reference to this. This is the Troy Baker turn as Ocelot. Very different from Josh Keaton, very different from Patrick Zimmerman. We can get back to what he does for us in a second, but Felix, what are your thoughts on this version of Ocelot?
It's incredibly difficult to see how we got from this guy to the Ocelot of MGS 1 and 2. Now, this is not Troy Baker's fault.
No.
Like, Ocelot is written in an incredibly pro-social way that is very weird for his character.
Mm-hmm.
He's weirdly compassionate and civic-minded. If you listen to some of his tapes with Code Talker, he's like kind of woke.
Yeah, I mean, he still tortures people. Don't get it twisted.
People.
But
you know, in this game, you're constantly going to have 2 people in your ear while you're doing missions. One is Kaz, and you know, it was obvious from the trailers he was going to be the fiery voice of revenge and spite and anger, and he's probably going to be the guy who's telling you to kill people. Ocelot is always the voice of compassion and, hey, let's see where this goes, or why don't you try extracting this person.
Maybe not even compassion, but like caution and
caution and reason.
Level-headedness.
Yeah. However, on the other side, there's an argument to be made that this is not so much a retconning of his character as it is like we do learn that his behavior as we see it in the game is kind of a put on. Yeah, but I think his pro-socialness and his weird his collaborative nature, I think it's unstated, but I think that's he is changing his personality to match what Venom may have expected of him. Because Venom probably heard about this guy a few times. Like, hey, I met this weird guy in Russia 20 years ago. Yeah. He was a Gru guy, but he like really loved Western stuff and cowboy movies. And he's like kind of in love with me, but he's also my best friend and I really like him.
Well, I think it's not, I hate when people say this, but it's both. I think Kojima wanted to basically have fun with a new version of Ocelot, but also there is an in-universe explanation as to why he may be putting on a completely different front as to his personality. Because when we see him around Big Boss, and I mean Big Boss, he still sounds like this. You know? Yeah. I like Troy Baker. I think Ocelot is fun in this. I like his look in this a lot. Given how much this game is different tonally than the other games, I have no problem shifting how characters talk or sound like. I mean, we already have Kiefer Snake, you know.
Yeah. No, I have no problem with it either. And you know, even without him torturing people, you eventually hear him say and do some incredibly and very typically sinister things that actually match that character. And you know, they never like go out of their way to go, oh, by the way, I'm gonna pretend to be this really nice guy when we're doing this thing. But it is going from what we know about the universe and these characters and this character specifically. I think that's a satisfactory enough answer. And I also, I don't think it's the worst thing to take a new crack at a character, to go, okay, what does he look like in this role? I think that's fun, and I think if your take on like a prequel is to just go, okay, he has to be, all these characters have to be completely and entirely congruent with all their other portrayals in every other game, then what's the fucking point of doing one? Anyhow, he goes, well, partner, let's get out of Dodge. Yeah. How did he get a horse to Cyprus? We'll never know. Last thing I'll say about Ocelot's character, the thing that I do think is really funny about him, though, is he's still in the Russian military at this point. And it's like, imagine if you are like, this guy's your fucking commanding officer. You're losing like 100 guys a week. Just misery. Your helicopter's getting shot down by American Stingers, and your commanding officer is this fucking Sam Elliott goofball, and he's like, well, fellas, I gotta go to the Seychelles for another 8 months.
Big Boss needs a shower, and only I can teach him how to do it. They're like, what?
Who the fuck are, like,
we just lost a whole battalion. And he's just gone. He's in a helicopter already.
Yeah. It's kind of like how the command on the radio responds when enemy soldiers see a box. You go, I want to file a complaint. My commanding officer dresses and talks like Sam Elliott. He got a mustache like him. He's disappears for months at a time. I think he's working for like a weird group of scumbag mercenaries. Yeah. Who do I complain to about this? And the bureaucrat on the other end is like, we need to send this guy to counseling. You did not describe anyone that has ever existed.
They also they give a little. They finally give a little bit of an explanation. Shalashaska. I think that's in a tape. That's an early tape. He's
It
like,
is.
you can call me Shalashaska. It means
Because somewhere along the line, Shashka got stuck on the end of Sharashka. The guerrillas were using the name amongst themselves. And by the time I got to hearing about it, pronunciation had wound up as Shalashashka. So half gulag, half hero sword. Is a perfect fit. But you see how rumors and ideas about people can get out of hand fast.
what's neat to me is like maybe in reality, Ocelot is like, yeah. But in this, if you're gonna play as this character and be some kind of protagonist, it's fun that like maybe he does talk like that in 1984, you know. But we need to experience it as him talking like a suave guy who's rough and tumble methods may not always be clean, but he's on your side. You know, like we can't have him be Snidely Whiplash. We need to process him as an ally. So we give him this different voice to kind of, you know, put you in the shoes of someone who doesn't view him as evil, even if the rest of the world would do that.
Yeah.
So I kind of like it actually as a storytelling choice.
Exactly. And it's just one of my favorite things that I was going to say games, but really this is one of my favorite conventions in fiction is using a character's unique and idiosyncratic syntax and diction to very strongly imply something without outright stating it. Mm-hmm. I always think one of my favorite examples of this in games is in Dark Souls 1, how when you first hear the prophecy of the chosen undead, mm-hmm. it's in this very flowery, like, you know, a guy with a 9th grade education trying to imagine what people in the Bible sounded like. Mm-hmm. Thou must blah blah doest this. Yeah. And you know, but then when the first time you actually talk to someone who was alive during that time, they just sound normal. They sound like anyone else you've talked to. And it strongly implies that like the undead prophecy is completely fabricated and it is not a thing. They're just manipulating you to light your soul on fire mm-hmm. so they can extend their age. Mm-hmm. And it's like a super subtle thing. And also, I think people's individual syntaxes and word choices and just their own interpretations of language are so interesting. And it's actually one of my least favorite things about modern streaming TV and a lot of modern conventional TV is how all the characters and stuff sound the exact fucking same. Mm-hmm. No one has unique, like unrepeatable syntax and word choices. And for all the faults that you can chalk up for with this game, that's not one of them.
No,
people sound unique from each other.
Yep,
and they're saying a lot with just the individual word choices and accents and linguistic quirks of every character.
We end up in a little montage where Ocelot is nursing us back to health. Is this the first wah-huh?
Yeah.
And we get a bionic arm. And it is very reminiscent of the professor and his bionic arm from Peace Walker. What's his name? Zadornov, yeah. We end up in the mountains of Afghanistan with Ocelot. We're both on horseback because the first thing we need to do before we get the band back together, well, in order to get the band back together, not just our base, but our second in command, is go rescue Kazuhira Miller, who's been training Mujahideen for the past, several years of the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, and was picked up by the Soviets and is now being held captive by them. And we gotta extract him.
there is something that is pretty funny to me about the boat scene. And so this entire first, everything in this prologue where you're in the hospital and coming out of the hospital, you, Venom, Big Boss, you look like you could be what, like 110 pounds, if that. Like the skinniest and most malnourished he has ever looked. I mean, he's been in a fucking coma for 9 years.
Yep.
Then when you're on the boat and you get that bionic arm, there's a really short shot of a needle going into your arm that I always thought was implied to be anabolic steroids. But it's like, steroids aren't like spinach for Popeye. Because when you see him in this scene, he looks like he's put on like easily 90 pounds of muscle.
How much time is it supposed? It's not supposed to have been a ton of time, right?
A few weeks, like a few weeks.
Well, if you have, you pop a calorie, mate, you're basically good to go.
Yeah,
we learned that already. Yeah, that's funny. What's he got on? He's got like a shawl, kind of,
Yeah.
And I like that look. He's got a ponytail, which we haven't seen him sport before. This is the famous to some scene in which Ocelot says Afghanistan is a big place. Go and bring the legend back to life. He tells you that essentially what we need to do after the all of this, Kazuhira Miller, your situation as Snake, Ocelot's appearance, it's all down to the attack by Cypher on Mother Base 10 years earlier. It's obviously why everyone has been scattered. It's why you've been in a coma, and the reason you're Venom Snake is that you're out for revenge. And Kazuhira Miller is gonna, once we rescue him, he's gonna be, outwardly even more wrathful about what happened. But your goal is to rebuild what used to be MSF into the new organization. It's the same thing, but it's called Diamond Dogs now. And that's what Ocelot's imploring you to do, is bring the legend back to life, basically reclaim the mantle, and then we'll go get Cypher, Skullface, to be more exact. I always think one of the last lines he says to you in this cutscene before you fully go out on your first real mission is, I give him 3 days tops. He dies, our chance for revenge goes out the window. By the way, just like with the end, if you do let 3 days of in-game time pass, you will fail the mission. He will die. I did not know that.
It's awesome.
I did not know that.
Another thing that I think is incredibly weird and off about it. Okay, we know that Ocelot was still a member of the Russian military to such an extent that he got a nickname based on his exploits as a torturer and interrogator. He seems to know pretty much exactly where Miller is being held, and he knows the specifics of his condition to the point that he knows how much time he has left. I don't feel like the game is saying this one way or the other, but you could. I always thought there was a possibility that Ocelot almost set him up.
Their dynamic is very interesting, and it is more or less implied, right, that by the time of MGS1, Ocelot is the one who kills Miller.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they find his body. Yeah, lines of this game contribute to that. But yeah, Miller is in this village, or near a village where the Soviets are keeping him, and it's kind of a 2-part mission. First, you can go get the info about his more exact location, right? And after that, or instead of that, you go straight to where he was.
So the iDroid and your monocular, all this stuff that we were introduced to in Ground Zeroes, it's all back. But I always, whenever there is a part of a mission where I have the option of scanning documents or like a map or something, even though you really don't need to do that at all, ever. I always do it because I think the cutscene where the iDroid is just like it's reading the lines of text with like some weird beam that causes a little steam to come off the paper. Yeah. I think that's so cool. I love the iDroid. The iDroid is one of my favorite devices they have ever had in the game, in any of the games.
The door to my building, I'm almost 100% sure it's the same lady who voices the iDroid.
Oh yeah. Also, this is your introduction to D-Horse. He is now officially your buddy. You can get off him. You can call him over. All buddies in this game have a bond system that you can fill up, and the more bonded you are with a buddy, the more things you can order them to do. D-Horse, given that your other buddies are a weirdly intelligent dog that knows like karate and knows how to use the Fulton system, a superhuman sniper, and like a killer robot, D-Horse has the least impressive capabilities of your buddy, but he will shit on command, and he is pretty useful. And I like using D-Horse a lot because he's a very good way to traverse the map. If you use things like I Can't Believe It's Not Reshade and some of the Beyond Ultra settings mods that are available on PC, and you just like taking things in, it's just really fun to traverse the map with him, and you don't have to get off him if you're coming up on an outpost. But, as far as like, this is, I would say, the actual tutorial of the game, this mission, Phantom Limbs. I think it's as good as any like quasi-tutorial, let's get your feet wet mission can be. There are multiple ways to take on the main objective. There is only one thing you absolutely have to do. And there is, if you want, a completely optional boss fight. But, and that really cool in-game time 3 days thing. But anyhow, if it's your first time playing, you probably get that info and get that amazingly cool iDroid illustration.
Mm-hmm.
You get acquainted with the controls and the Fulton system. Now, your analyzer, similar to what you had in Peace Walker, will tell you the basic abilities of soldiers that you pointed at when you're marking them. Of course, similar to Peace Walker, you have to keep upgrading it to be able to figure out the abilities of higher ranked soldiers. But in these first few missions of the game, you're probably going to be wanting to extract pretty much anyone, especially anyone a C rank or higher, because you're just going to want to fill out Mother Base so you can develop certain things at an accelerated pace. Though, another thing I like about this game, it's obviously optimal to go and try to seek out and Fulton away soldiers with abilities. And obviously, Fultoning a soldier is a way to remove them from the map without killing them and impacting your score. But you don't have to do that. Because if you just get volunteers, sometimes as many as like 14 or 15, depending on how well you scored on a mission. And a lot of the times, those are the only way you can get like S ranked or even A ranked soldiers very early in the game is by S ranking some of this. Anyhow, though, you make your way to the room in the repurposed house where Miller is being held, and he's had better days.
Okay, I could not remember what is up with his eyes. He's not blind, is he?
So in Peace Walker, there were a few lines explaining the fact that he's extremely photosensitive. But there is a weird thing with his eyes in this game. Because this first scene where you go and rescue him, the first thing he says to you when you come into the room is, "Ran out of use for me, huh?" He doesn't know it's you, it's Big Boss. He doesn't know that someone's even coming to rescue him. He just heard footsteps and assumed it was a Soviet coming to just put a Makarov behind his ear. And you even ask him, "Did they do something to your eyes?" And he goes, "No, it's just bright in here.
It's just bright as all." Yeah.
Yeah. But did you notice how different his eyes look in every scene after this mission?
I know that later on he takes his glasses off and they're just kind of pale.
No, they're pale in the exact way that Code Talker's eyes are.
You're right.
Lightly implied that he got some type of parasite treatment.
Oh.
Yeah. A lot of the incredibly subtle things I absolutely love, and I think it's A sign of maturity, because if you are doing, if you're focusing less on story and more on themes, which is sort of the transition between the first 3 games in the series and this back half, I think you do have to be more subtle. And that's part of the reason that MGS4, so many things in that game don't work. Because you can't, if you're trying to do a thematic thing, but you have like characters that are named like scary childhood trauma girl, and she just screams like, here's what they made me do when I was 7.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, I guess I know what your themes are. But when everything is like, things are just kind of off and they're like split second things, but you can still notice them, then it works way better. The problem is, and again, this is how much of a curve you grade this game on. It comes down to whether you think that there were satisfactory conclusions, or at least framing devices for these themes and very subtle suggestions, or if you think no, they're not capable of that and they just fucking went over budget and that's their own fault. And again, there's no right answer. None of us have any fucking way of knowing. But that is one of the reasons that I say that I really wish this game had another 18 months in the oven. Because, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say that Kojima has never once like introduced something without any type of satisfactory follow-up. But I don't. He errs more on the side of over-explaining, if anything.
Sure.
And I tend to think
certainly
that,
in 4 he does.
Yeah, I just tend to think that even if the ultimate answer or narrative follow-up that we got for things like Kaz's eyes, for very cryptic scenes like Eyes on Kazuhira from Code Talker, that there was at least going to be something that would have been better than just a very vague, very haunting theme that ultimately results in nothing.
What took you so long?
We'll talk, but not here.
He is missing an arm and a leg because it's really expensive to fly to Afghanistan. I'm just kidding.
presumably he they got blowed up in the Cypher incident when our helicopter got hit. Right?
This is another thing I like about this game. They never say one way or the other.
That is true. Although it would be weird if the Soviets cut off his arm and leg. That's not really like typically a...
Well, maybe it wasn't the Soviets. Maybe it was the Skull unit. That's the reason that he's captured, is that the Skulls ambushed him and his men and then handed them over to the Soviets.
But yeah, you hike him over your shoulder and you get clear of that base and you think, all right, here we go. What's his name? Pequot? Pequot's showing up.
Yeah, you call him Pequod.
And he's ready to pick you up, but all of a sudden it's getting real funky in the area. And Pequod's like, "Oh, I can't do it. It stinks real bad." And he abandons you. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, boss." And you then see these like a pretty new style of enemy in this series. These I'm sorry, they look just like the Borg from Star Trek. These Borg show up, which could be a loving reference. These Borg show up. They have kind of gray skin and a lot of like cybernetic looking attachments to their bodies, and they materialize out of the mist. They have kind of green eyes. They look sort of undead, and they also materialize weapons from thin air. And you're thinking, okay, I haven't seen this in a Metal Gear game before. And you have to outrun them because they've... I think there's a way that you can bypass them. I think I did it once, but I definitely didn't remember how to do that on this replay of the game. So you're very likely to end up triggering them to chase you, and it's pretty neat. They start bouncing all around. They're not going to do terrible damage to you in this first level, but it's very jarring as you try to just run away on D-Horse with Kaz to a new Pequod location.
Yeah, and this really scares the shit out of you if it's your first time playing it.
Yeah, you're like, you can't get them off of you, you know.
Yeah, I love the really like herky jerky way they move around, and that's before they even sort of become intangible and seemingly like warp to different locations. Of course, by the time you finish this game, you realize they're the weakest skull unit, but and very good to farm. But I think a really effective introduction to them. One thing also I love while you're carrying Kaz on your shoulders back to Pequod before this scene is he'll go, boss, I've been waiting 9 years. Please give me those magic words. And if you press the action button at the right moment, Kiefer Steak will deliver a very hollow sounding, kept you waiting, huh? And it's really fucking sad. It just really makes me feel like shit every time I hear it. But things will get even more depressing because you make it out, and this helicopter ride back is, you can really, for people who like fucking hate this game, I totally understand it, because it is such a strong start. When you're riding back, Kaz is explaining to you that in the past 9 years while you've been in a coma, he has been doing the scummiest, most morally compromised, just lowest of the low mercenary work with Diamond Dog, just so he can build up money and recruits, just so they will have the strength and reach to combat Cypher.
Yep.
But now that you're back, you can finally strike back at Cypher, the people who took everything from you. And this is where the infamous why are we still here, just to suffer? The thing that I love the most about this entire scene is after Kaz gives this monologue to you, to Big Boss, Boss goes, Kaz, what should I do? Tell me what to do, like you used to. And it's so, like, it is the least anyone has ever sounded like Big Boss. And your heart just sinks through your stomach when you hear that.
There's a short tutorial after this Phantom Limbs mission, the first real mission of the game, that it's not very, very straightforward. You learn how to Fulton things. At this point in the game, you're not going to be able to Fulton like vehicles or shipping containers, but you do Fulton people and animals. You actually one of the fun things in this game is you can tranquilize animals, depending on how rare they are, e.g. endangered. You'll get a bigger payout and a bigger heroism bonus. Because according to what Kaz is telling you, at least, a World Wildlife Federation type group is paying you to extract animals from war zones, and you could actually there's a zoo on Mother Base with all your extracted animals that I always thought was fun.
It's cute.
I really like the sheep in Afghanistan. Every time that I have been on like D-Horse or in a car and I accidentally like bump an animal, I immediately restart the mission. Like I feel fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Despite I checked my stats last night, slitting 750 throats in this game.
Well, I also like that apparently Diamond Dogs has a reputation that, you know, they'll kill for any cause or regardless of any cause or any ideology. And you can also come to them if you want animals to be protected.
Yeah. I mean, the first mission in Africa is actually ostensibly at the behest of an environmental group, but a more aggressive one.
Right.
But they're the only PMC in the world where it's like, I mean, I guess you would have to include MSF with this, but their clients are the KGB, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the CIA, probably Pakistani and Saudi intelligence, considering how involved they are with Cyclone.
Yeah.
Just anyone.
Yeah.
It's pretty. Yeah. I mean, they're they're true mercenaries.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we're going to talk sort of broadly about the types of missions that you get in Afghanistan, because there's, every mission relates to the larger plot, at least a little, but there are some where the actual connection is so tangential that it really is not worth the time to run through every step of it.
Yep.
So I'm just generally going to say that, very broadly, most of the missions, these first 12 main story missions in Afghanistan, most of them you are supposed to assassinate a high-ranking officer. You always just have the option to extract them instead. Usually when this is your mission, Kaz will even say something at the start of the mission, or Ocelot will, to the effect of, well, it would be it's a shame to let all that talent go to waste, but, do what you want. I think that the missions themselves, how they're structured and the sort of variety they're in, are generally stronger in this first stretch in Afghanistan than they are in Africa. Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of that one mission where your stated objective is to assassinate 3 high-ranking Soviet officers, though of course it's more advantageous to extract them because there aren't a lot of high-ranking soldiers at this early in the game, but they have pretty good stats. They're all scheduled for a meeting in this town in Daiwala Kolay, I think. But if you don't get them there or on their way there, or if you get one and they get alerted, they all retreat to their separate outposts, and you have 3 super well populated, super on guard outposts that you have to infiltrate. I love, there's so much variation in these missions that I think is great. You're building up Diamond Dogs pretty rapidly. Seeing as this is 1984, one of the jobs given to you is a job by the CIA. You are supposed to get well, there are no licensed guns in this game, so it's called the Honeybee. But it's a Stinger missile. But the Honeybee is kind of adorable to me. And it looks exactly like an FIM-92 Stinger, which was a very, I think the most famous thing that we gave to the Mujahideen. The Honeybee is in this sort of weird cul-de-sac fort that there are a ton of rumors around it. There is a mute prisoner being taken there by a group of 4 Russian commandos who are they're trying to force him to show them where the Honeybee is, because obviously it would be a huge deal for the Soviet Union to get this state-of-the-art piece of American weapons technology. If you rescue this guy, he will wordlessly tell you where it is, which, if this is your first time doing it, will make the mission way easier. But if you, just a small note in this, I think it's cool. You can follow them all the way to Dismas-et-Liman, and those guys, all 3 of those NPCs, will march Hamid into the deeper into that complex, those ruins, and he'll show them where the Honeybee is. they'll take it and then shoot him. And then there's a special cutscene that happens if you don't get it from them, where you fail the mission. But it's a full cutscene of them, putting it on a helicopter and flying away, and you missed your opportunity. But anyhow, presuming you didn't do that and you did this right, you grab it. A big fog seems to come over the place, and Venom goes, "Oh no, I have allergies." You come outside, you get grabbed by this giant fucking hand, and this is the first time that you are face to face with Skullface.
Rest in peace this time. I'll see you in hell, boss.
What the hell was that thing? It was huge.
He says something very interesting to Venom in this cutscene. "You look well rested, big boss. You became a demon for such little weapons as that," referencing your honeybee. Then he, in true Bond villain fashion, having you dead to rights, he just fucks off and lets you fight the Mist Skulls. This is the first, technically Phantom Limbs is the first boss fight in the game, but you really are just supposed to evade them if it's your first time playing it. You're probably not going to have good enough weapons to kill them without them killing Kaz and failing the mission. This one, you can also run from them, but you are supposed to fight them. This mission marks one of the first times that you get conflicting advice over the radio from between Kaz and Ocelot, where Kaz says, since you were contracted by the CIA to recover this missile with none of the ammo missing, don't use it on these horrifying supernatural ghouls that you're fighting. And Ocelot goes, I want to see it. I want to see you blow them up. You get more money if you don't use it, but it will be much easier this part in the game. I do like the aspect that, like, this first time that a lot of people are going to actually fight them, that it's right after you meet Skullface, and they look like phantoms of him, which is cool.
Are they dead, technically?
No, but they... okay, so there are different types of parasites. They have the one that covers parasite that Code Talker talks about, and they can give you amazing physiological abilities, but they will also they make you slow mentally.
Right.
And
so these are essentially kind of sort of zombie super soldiers.
Yeah. I think this would probably be the best time to explain the idea of there being 3 layers through which everything in this game can be understood. If you have played this game, you will probably know that everything at this very early point in the game, at least these first 12, 13 missions, this is the most shallow layer of understanding. I call this layer of understanding farce. Through this layer of understanding, it is everything that is told directly to you this early on. You are in charge. You are going after. You are on a mission of revenge. You are going after the people that wronged you. All the clients for your missions, be them the CIA or, in some cases, aggrieved individuals. They are who they are. You take this all at face value. The next layer of understanding after this, that you get later on in the game, is the quote-unquote truth. This represents everything that you learn, both at the end of the Afghanistan chapter and throughout the Africa chapter and in the final couple missions of the game. And these are all the infamous plot twist, the revelations you get later on. And these are always things that they're not they're not untrue. They're always literally factual, but they're often leaving out such massive pieces of context and, surrounding motives and conflicting details that you could not really say that it gives you the full picture or anywhere near that. The deepest layer of understanding, which you can only really get replaying this game a billion times, listening to all the audio tapes, this is where you fully realize that everyone in this game, even and especially your friends, have conflicting motives. The information they are giving you is contradictory. Everyone has a reason to lie or at least omit the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And the closest you could get to figuring out what is going on, what is true, what is false, is figuring out who had what motive to lie about what when.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about these first few missions in the game is you can just enjoy it as a straightforward story that has some quirks in the way that it's told your first go around. But when you come back to it later, when you have interpreters for all the languages that are being spoken by NPCs during the mission, and when you've listened to audio tapes and you've gotten this bit of background or that after you finish the game, you really see how much of a game is being run here, and how absolutely nothing that you didn't even think about it your first go around. You just assumed, why would someone lie about that? That it is just an entirely different thing than what you thought it was. And there's a lot in this game, at the end, we're going to go through things that we really think could have been done better. But that is something that I feel like they did really well. Now, I've never agreed with the too little story criticism. I think if anything, this game has too much story. You can disagree over whether it was delivered in the best format, but I would even argue that it would be better served by having like a little less going on.
I would probably agree with that. I certainly feel like the effect is that there wasn't a cogent story. Maybe some people feel like there wasn't enough or that there was too much and it was confusing. To me, it just, the failure there is that it wasn't told very well, in my opinion. And part of it, I actually was caught off guard replaying it, how much story is communicated, whether it relates to the main plot or not. And even just the plot kind of comes and goes. Sometimes you're doing several missions in a row, just like that have nothing to do with Skullface or the parasites or Quiet or anything. But you'll finish a mission, and instead of getting a cutscene or what in the old days would be a codec call where you're having a conversation, you just get Kaz, maybe Ocelot, against some still images going, "Boss, we just found this out." And it's not very dynamic because, sure, the codec calls were still portraits more or less, but you were having characters interact and argue or, reveal things to each other. And I'm not necessarily against Venom as a more or less silent protagonist, but it does make those non-cutscenes even less dynamic when you're just being told stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good criticism, right? Like, because a lot of people who defend the tapes or, Kaz talking to you at the end of the mission will say, well, in the other games, it was delivered through a codec, and that was even less interactive. But the key thing with the codecs, especially Metal Gear Solid 1, the example they use, is that Solid Snake was a very active participant in these codecs. Yes. That's part of what made them so great. I mean, we talked about it in our first episode, but that amazing moment right before the first Sniper Wolf boss fight, where Snake says, "I don't care what my genes say, I'm going to save her." Mm-hmm. That's you. Yeah, Venom doesn't do anything like that in any of these calls.
I think my criticism at this point is both that the form of the storytelling is very flawed, as we just discussed, with like still portraits and Kaz just telling you things. And we'll get to it as we go with these story beats, but also just I'll say now, I guess, the actual content of the story as well just doesn't do it for me. Skullface, his like 3 different schemes, the parasite stuff, the whole idea of language being a super weapon. I don't find myself caught up in it. When I first played it, I was very intrigued, as we've discussed, but going back, I just know I'm not interested. And so in form and content, I can't get too excited about the story. You know, as convoluted as the other games can be, which we've talked about, you know, you're always pretty clear on what your next step is and why people are doing what they're doing, even if it's an insane motivation, like Liquid's gene obsession or Ocelot's shifting allegiances. You just know Liquid's obsessed with his genes and fate. Ocelot's always switching sides. Things can get kind of weird and crazy, but you're invested because the stakes are pretty much clear. And in my opinion, those stories, even 2, which goes crazy places, in my opinion, I'm both clear on what is going on, or at least in the short term, and I find the ideas interesting, or at the least entertaining. You know, the rivalry between 2 brothers created from Big Boss in the first game, and the different paths their lives have taken and how they have to have a showdown. The classic, you know, panopticon sort of dystopia of 2, and you know, different groups trying to overthrow that authority. 3, the classic espionage story, but also the story of mother and son, surrogate, you know, that we've talked about. This game, there's just not a lot to sink your teeth into, in my opinion, with such sparse and far between character interactions and relationships, and then the high concepts of language and stuff like that, the Skullface stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that about like the main plot elements being often lacking, or just either not being filled out enough, or just really on a fundamental level, often just in and of themselves not being interesting enough. What I think is interesting, though, is that it's less convoluted, as you said, and also kind of less interesting. Mm-hmm. But the things around those plot points, the larger backdrop, and kind of realizing how much that is being laid at your feet is just a complete farce, that is incredibly interesting. And I mean, it's so hard to figure out what they wanted to do, what this would have looked like, right? But I like to think that if, you know, who knows, if they had gotten another $15 million, or they had been given another year or 2, that element would have been more articulated.
Yeah, I mean, the game and its predecessor, Ground Zeroes, they're great at setting up mysteries and introducing intriguing characters and new folds in old relationships between characters, as we discussed with Ground Zeroes, and definitely in the, you know, beginning of this game. And I love, as I've said, the feel of this game, the look of the game, quite apart from gameplay itself, and some of the sort of iconography in the game. Like, we'll get to him, but Sahelanthropus is my favorite Metal Gear. He's awesome. And there's so many creative and wonderful things they do with the world you're inhabiting in 5, in Phantom Pain. But that's all in service of an actual story that, feels half-baked. It does feel half-baked.
Yeah, and it's what makes this game so fucking maddening. You don't know what you can attribute to, you know, Konami and Kojima Productions and Kojima himself falling out, what you can attribute to, you know, this being rushed out the door, what you could, where you could lay the blame at, whether it was on Kojima's end, someone who was, on the writing staff and executive, like who knows why, X or Y part is the way it is. Mm-hmm. I think about what you said about how you need cutscenes to sort of mitigate the inherent problems of having a largely silent protagonist. Mm-hmm. That made me think about how one of the absolute best cutscenes in this game, one of my favorite moments in this game, it features a character saying nothing and communicating something only with the look on her face. Mm-hmm. I think there's just this game has, I think, the best facial capture acting I've ever seen in any game. And
it's really good, and that's part of the missed potential that I'm thinking of. Yeah. With what could have been done with more of those cutscenes where you can really study their faces. You can really read like wrinkles and brows, in this game.
There was a review of this game that I really love by Kiev Reviews Things, and I'll link to the video in the description. And he said something about Kiefer Sutherland's face, which is the uncertain qualities of it make the few cutscenes that center around his facial expressions so enthralling and mysterious, but also gripping. Mm-hmm. And I really wish there had been more of that. And again, that's the other thing. Was there not more of that because of budget? Mm-hmm. Did they run out of time, or was there just never a plan for much of that? I don't know.
I mean, because the thing we're complaining about, or that you could lodge this criticism about, just sort of a dialogue dump at the end of a mission from Kaz. It feels a lot like what Peace Walker. I mean, it's a lot like Peace Walker, except in Peace Walker they were more like codec calls because Snake was talking. Like there's that great conversation we mentioned in the Peace Walker episode between Kaz and Big Boss about Kaz not trusting Big Boss to make the right decision because of his emotional ties to the boss. That's one of the better character moments in the series. And it's only happening with still images. It matched the level of production that Peace Walker had, and it matched, I would argue, the expectations one might have of a PSP game. With Phantom Pain, it feels imbalanced. It feels like sometimes we're getting these beautiful cutscenes that, are next level for the series, and the next minute you're getting this like chintzy filler. And so it's jarring, and it's back and forth, and it's hard to imagine that was something Kojima and his team were satisfied with. I suppose it's possible.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that. I think, a lot of the shortcomings do reflect problems that the series has had before. Mm-hmm. Peace Walker, famously, you have those fucking 7 recaptures and Dornov missions that you can only trigger by playing like the worst side ops imaginable. Yeah. But like, this was clearly like a departure, a new. They were telling the story in a new way. They were writing, and even just like the blocking of the cutscenes was totally new. The camera work totally different than what we've seen before. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just can't imagine this was exactly what they drew up.
To crowbar an analogy from the game in, when we're talking about Skullface or Code Talker and Cypher stuff, we're in Sahelanthropus in Rex mode. We're not standing at full height. To me, when we're on Mother Base and it's the trial of Huey Emmerich, or it's the suspicions about Quiet and Kaz, suspicious of Ocelot and Ocelot telling you to keep an eye on Kaz, then I'm fascinated. That's all great. That's when we're standing at our full height. To quote Skullface, we're walking upright.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, that all the best scenes in this game almost entirely take place on Mother Base. And all the storylines, especially the latter game storylines that take place on Mother Base, are so much... They're plotted and executed so fucking well that I cannot imagine some of the more half-baked stuff in the game that it was supposed to be that way. Yeah, I totally agree.
Just a minute. This isn't what we agreed on.
The changes have already been finalized.
It's not operational yet. The remote piloting and AI control haven't reached the application stage.
Who said anything about an AI? That was Coldman's mistake 10 years ago.
Be that as it may, we'll need to modify postural control to accommodate a human pilot. I share your urgency, but we need more time to finish it.
He analyzed the transmission. He's been in contact with the big boss.
Right. Planning on leaving us, Doctor?
Huh? What?
I'm taking your legs back!
The next big headline in this section of the game, you've received word that Emmerich would like to get asylum in Diamond Dogs, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And of course, there is a lot of murkiness around this because if people recall in Ground Zeroes, the inspection of Mother Base was not only Huey's idea, but he signed them up for it without Big Boss's or Kaz's approval. And it turned out to not be an inspection. It turned out to be a really bad parent-teacher conference day at Mother Base. But he may have answers for what is going on with Cypher, who this Skullface guy is, which I keep in mind, at this point in the game, neither Snake nor Kaz know who the fuck Skullface is.
Yep.
The only thing Kaz says to you about Skullface after Where Did the Bees Sleep is, who is that Grim Reaper guy who is hanging out with them?
Yeah.
And that is something that's interesting to me about this game. In a movie or a book, you could have the protagonist not know something that the reader or the viewer does know. In a game, it's way fucking harder.
Right.
Because it's like, if you show a cutscene where, your player character there's a betrayal being set up or something like that, you would just go, okay, I'm not going to achieve this objective that's clearly a trap. But I mean, that's actually something I kind of like about this game, because it's never so obvious that something is a trap, at least your first time playing it. But it is kind of, I think it's interesting. And I think it works a lot of the time. At least for me, for how I interpreted a lot of this game. But anyhow, you are supposed to make contact with Huey Emmerich, the most annoying, awful guy in the fucking world. On your way there, though, I guess Venom decided to do some sightseeing. You're in these beautiful ruins, and wouldn't you know it, there's a deadly sniper there. There is the sniper that has been taking out high-ranking Soviet troops, who, coincidentally, all the troops that have been taken out by this sniper were Soviets who were opposed to the machinations of Cypher, from elements sympathetic to Cypher within the Soviet military.
Right.
You are able to get to cover when the sniper takes a shot at you, and holy shit, this is the lady that got lit on fire.
But she looks better than ever.
Yeah.
She doesn't look all burnt up.
When I saw her for the first time, I said, I'm going to try lighting myself on fire. It seems like it's amazing for your skin. Yeah. So this is our introduction to Quiet, another boss fight. I think, there are very few boss fights in this game compared to the rest of the series. but some of them are so good. This being one of them.
Yeah, I like this fight.
Yeah. So Quiet, it's not apparent until you mark her and try to go after her, but she moves exactly like the Skulls, actually kind of faster.
Mm-hmm.
And she almost seems to become intangible.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Miller and Ocelot are giving commentary while you're doing this. But it's a super fucking tense fight. There are so many ways to play this. Have you ever done the thing where you just try to sneak up on her and just like kick her in the head 3 times?
Yeah, I think I've done it because that's how I like to fight the end is by sneaking up on him. So I at one point I did the same thing with Quiet. I've tried it a bunch of different ways as well. You know, like having a supply drop hit her on the noggin.
That one's
which is always fun. But the first time I played it, I'm almost certain I must have done a sniper duel with her.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A really great fight. And, you know, we've talked about marking enemies. I thought this was a great take on this, incredibly powerful ability they've given you in these Fox Engine games by having an enemy that can just sort of become intangible, and even learning enough about their position to mark them puts you at an enormous risk. So very, very cool fight. Well, wouldn't you know it? You know, if you told me supernatural sniper who seems to defy the laws of physics by becoming intangible versus 49-year-old man with severe brain damage, who wins? Obviously, I'm saying the 49-year-old, and that's what the game thinks too. Yeah, by the way, this is why the U.S. lost all of our wars in the 21st century. We didn't have any soldiers that sounded and acted like Coleman Francis.
Well, we should also say there's a normally Metal Gear bosses like to taunt you and talk smack, but Quiet is true to her name, silent except for a haunting little humming that she does.
Yeah. That's another thing I like is figuring out where she is through the humming, because your monocular has a directional mic.
Exactly.
But yeah, no. So she's on the ground, and actually, in the exact same framing of the shot from the end of Metal Gear Solid 3, where you're supposed to shoot the boss, the first voice in your ear is Miller just saying, "Hurry up, kill her!" Like you don't want her to flip all over the place again. And it gives you 10 seconds of waiting in that exact position. It's a pretty strong suggestion for you to just pull the trigger, and you can. You can just kill her there. Or you can walk away and just keep replaying this boss fight every time you go through there. But after a few seconds, Ocelot goes, "No, let's take her back to Mother Base." And I think most people probably ended up taking her back. I am curious if there are people who just, the suggestion was so strong that they just unthinkingly pulled the trigger.
If you kill her, do you just not get any Quiet related cutscenes?
Nope.
Interesting. I didn't know they actually went through with that. I never thought to check.
I think that you just don't have them.
Yeah. Wow.
And she's a pretty important character, I think, for Venom's character too. But yeah, I really can't imagine playing the game without her character. I never used her for a ton of missions, but she's just, I don't know, she's a fun free roam buddy, and I just ended up really loving her character. But anyhow, you put her, you call Pequod over, you dump her on Pequod, and Venom, he is such a gentleman that he puts a coat over her. Well, she's sprawled out on the what are those called in a helicopter? Is that a bench in a helicopter? Is there some helicopter specific term for it?
Just seat is all that's coming to mind for me.
Yeah, she's sprawled out across like the 3 seats. He puts a coat over her, thinking he's being a gentleman. And Venom might be sort of stupid, because he's seen this woman become intangible and like invisible, and he's like, Yep, just a pair of normal handcuffs will do the job.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you know it, she tosses the coat in his face and turns into, like, aerosol particles again and jumps off the helicopter. I love what Ocelot says here. Slip the line, huh? It's a shame. Don't meet a lot of girls like her. Since he said something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you mean one of a kind? Oh yeah, it's only a couple times in your lifetime that you'll meet a girl who turns into subatomic particles. You get all the way back to the Indian Ocean before there are two Harrier. I mean, no license to anything in this game, but they look exactly like Harrier jets. Are on your tail. Pequod expends all of your countermeasures, all of your flares to avoid their sidewinders, and it's looking like the last true gentleman of the Cold War is about to die. Quiet rematerializes. And everything from here on out is so fucking cool. Some of the best shot scenes ever in the series. She takes like the minigun and just fucking shoots the sidewinders out of the sky. Her and Venom have this like wordless exchange where they kind of nod at each other. Venom takes the minigun and Quiet gets her rifle back. She just shoots a fucking pilot right between the eyes while he's about like 3 kilometers out from them. And the shot of the plane careening towards Pequod and just flying about like 20 feet under you is so cool. So if it wasn't clear already, she did her trick of becoming invisible to, play silent library this entire fight. She ended up saving your life. You get back to, once you're flying over Mother Base, though, you see a red laser on Venom's hand. He looks, and it's a diamond dog from another helicopter, aimed at yours. Venom he places his body in front of Quiet so they won't shoot her. Kaz is furious, saying you will not land on this base. You are not bringing her here. Quiet jumps out of I've never quite understood what she did here, but she jumps out and like becomes intangible again and then lands. But you see her bones, then her muscle, then like her skin become tangible, which is an amazingly cool shot, but they never really explain that. Who cares? I thought this was cute that Ocelot gets his own Ocelot unit in Diamond Dogs.
Yeah.
She goes invisible and he goes, thermals on.
Yeah.
And they find her. There's like 6 of these guys, tons of Diamond Dogs on deck, all aiming rifles at her. Miller is screaming at them to shoot.
Yep.
Venom steps in front of her, says, no, take her to the brig. Kaz is furious. And then one of my favorite Kiefer Snake lines, one of the best delivered ones, is when Kaz is furious.
Boss, you are going to regret this. That woman...
I know. She knows our location. Either way, one of these days we're gonna have to kill her. But now is not the time. When the time comes, I'll pull the trigger.
It's so fucking scuzzy and gross. And we've seen, in Peace Walker, we saw a lot of scenes that were, I think, very deliberately portrayed as heroic, but are actually quite sinister. But we've never seen one of our protagonists this, just low down, this much of a low life.
It's interesting because you could read some ambiguity in him as he's saying that. He could believe it. He is trying to calm He is trying to calm Kaz down as well. But he's in essence making a promise to him. Whereas, Ocelot is much more intrigued and interested in how she can be weaponized or used for the benefit of Mother Base, which tracks with Ocelot. Later on, he's going to spread the Metal Gear schematics all over the world. Back in the day, he fell in love with the guy he was supposed to kill. Ocelot is it tracks to me that he would be like, no, let's this is a fun new toy. We should try to figure this thing out and keep it for ourselves.
Yeah. I really like every single thing that has to do with quiet in this game. All the scenes are great. Some of the best voice and facial capture acting. It using her as a narrative device, just it illustrates so much about the characters involved in such a great way. But her reason for why she's naked is really fucking stupid. It's so fucking dumb. I mean, who cares? Because all this stuff is so great, but it's so fucking dumb. Like, why isn't Code Talker naked then?
That's what you brought up last time that I had never actually thought about until now. Because isn't it that her body was burned? Her whole body was burned. So is it that like the healing that the treatment she received means that her entire body is sort of conditioned by the parasite bullshit, and that's why her whole body is more or less unclothed, whereas I don't know, Code Talker didn't have that problem.
I guess
that seems to me to be the significance of like why she was burned. It's that she burned to death, and we saw her whole body on fire. That therefore her whole body would then be parasite enhanced or repaired, but then therefore have the problem of breathing. If people don't know what we're talking about, the idea is that she needs to be half naked all the time because she's breathing through her skin.
Yeah, her skin.
Yeah.
I mean, it also presents another problem that is quite reminiscent of problems in 4. If you could do this by just like taking out someone's organs or burning them or whatever, why, if you're Skullface, why wouldn't you just make like 1 million of these?
There's also another issue to do with her namesake that I can't remember if this is spoiling anything yet, but why she, I know this is cheap, but she could write stuff down, right? I mean, isn't that supposed?
Yeah, that's a pretty good point.
It's this is what I'm talking about with like, I appreciate the attempt to go somewhere with like language and this and that, but it's like, come on. If you can ask a question as simple as why didn't they write something down on a piece of paper? I don't know. I don't know about that one.
I think I saw an explanation for this once, and I can't remember if I thought it was really fucking stupid or good.
Well, because they're vocal cord parasites.
Yeah.
They're not just, it doesn't like prevent any communication, period. It's specifically vocal cords. So, as soon as we're not using our vocal cords, we should be able to do whatever we want. She's an interesting character. I just think, again, it's like this needed a second pass, maybe.
Okay. I remember.
Okay.
The tapes say that if you communicate at all, it puts you at risk for spreading it.
But why would that be the case?
I know. It's fucking... It needed more time in the oven. They needed way more time in the oven.
They're called vocal cord parasites. I just... You named them.
Yeah,
Hideo.
yeah.
You named them that.
Point.
So, anyway, but let's not get to...
Cinema
sins about it.
She on balance, way more good than bad.
Yeah,
way more.
I like her character.
It's actually pretty soon after she's apprehended that you get a side up where you just go to her prison cell on the medical platform of Mother Base, and Ocelot is there, and she's just sort of like writhing under the shower.
Yep,
and he goes, photosynthesis. She breathes and eats through her skin.
Yep.
And it's like, did you figure that out by just like looking at her? I guess he knew the end, but
it's not directly plot related. But when do we learn? Have we even talked about the parasites? We haven't really like fully explained them yet, have we? So
yeah,
maybe we could wait until Code Talker starts to give us that, because I do want to refresh my memory on the whole end and pain parasite thing as well. But yeah, Ocelot was doing very important research, staring at her taking a shower through prison bars.
Yeah, I like the idea of they should have done a tape where Ocelot is like, now that you mention it, I remember the end. He would have to put his willy out right in the sunlight. Said it was the only way he could have himself supper.
That's a good Ocelot. That's a good Troy Baker Ocelot.
Thank you. I've spent a lot of time with him. You know, I know the quirks of. I could even do self-hypnosis to convince myself I'm him.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful with that.
Anyhow, so now with you either killed the sniper or you have abducted her, so your weird fucking friend can leer at her all day. But she's no longer an obstacle. You can now rendezvous with the most annoying fucking shittiest person ever.